until we can get this fixed. Okay? Thank you. Professor Marcos Orellana, if you can hear us, is he available? Yes.
I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So please, if you be so kind to speak now, I would appreciate it. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for giving me the floor. I am very pleased to have the opportunity to join this very important side event. My name is Marcos Orellana. I'm the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights. As has been pointed out by several speakers, the exposure of people and whole communities in some instances to hazardous pesticides results in a range of human rights violations: the right to life, the right to health, the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. This problem of exposure, as has been pointed out, is particularly acute in Brazil because of the volume of pesticides used and because that volume is growing, as has been pointed out. In my few minutes, I wish to highlight a couple points that relate to the two thematic reports that I've presented and I will be presenting this year. First of all, the range of obstacles that victims face in accessing adequate means of justice. Obstacles like geographical distance, obstacles like undue delays in proceedings. In order to face these obstacles, last week I was in Geneva presenting a report on access to justice and effective remedies to the Human Rights Council that includes 24 guidelines. There are several guidelines that are particularly relevant for this matter. First of all, guideline 2, as Diogo Cabral mentioned, there are a number of laws in Brazil that are inadequate, that are regressive, and that do not provide sufficient protection to the rights of people that would otherwise be exposed to hazardous pesticides. These laws need to be transformed, need to be reformed, they need to be strengthened to come into line with human rights standards. In addition, Guideline 3 speaks of access to information. I often receive communications from people on the ground, and I ask them, do you know what is being sprayed? And the answer is invariably, often, no, we don't know. And that is because there's no available information, and without information, it is very hard or even impossible to reach out to judicial systems and other means of legal protection. Guideline 5 speaks of legal services that may be adequate. This is key for, especially for disempowered communities that may live in remote areas, may live in rural areas, far away from centers where lawyers would otherwise work. Guideline 7 speaks of an enabling environment for environmental and human rights defenders. This is also key because it is often the case that community leaders that speak out and mobilize in support of their communities, in support of their bodies, their homes, their territories, they are made the target of violence and attacks. Guideline 8 speaks of causal connection as often an impossible burden to meet. So, the burden of proving that a specific ailment or clinical manifestation, an illness, is causally connected with exposure to a specific hazardous pesticide. Jurisprudence from the European Court of Human Rights, from the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, is moving to tell us that once exposure to a hazardous pesticide or hazardous substances has been established, it is not necessary to also establish a causal connection. This relates to Guideline 23 on the precautionary principle. I also wish to mention Guideline 15 on the implementation of extraterritorial obligations because, as it has been said, several of these hazardous pesticides are produced for export in countries where they are banned or seriously restricted for use in their own territories. I also want to point out to what Ariana Gomez mentioned of traditional and indigenous knowledges and science. This is captured in Guideline 20. Guideline 22 speaks of delays and how to overcome them. This is in relation to the guidelines. In the couple seconds that I have, I also want to mention that I will be presenting to the UN General Assembly a report on military activities, which contains information about the Convention on Chemical Weapons of 1992, in reference also to Brazil. I have looked in detail at the definition of this convention that is used, and we can see in the text that it has a broad definition to broaden the scope of protection. And the point here is that there are pesticides being used, as has been alleged, for reasons that are not for plant protection or for agricultural use, as they are being used to displace communities. And that is, of course, certainly a serious allegation according to the definition on this convention. And I want to quote here: chemicals weapons exclude toxic chemicals intended for, and I quote, purposes not prohibited under this convention, including agricultural or other peaceful uses. And so this means that the use of hazardous pesticides to displace communities would be covered by the convention's definition of chemical weapons, because using pesticides to displace communities is not an agricultural use. Thank you so much for your attention.